At the Marwick gala, one maid dared to sing, shattering silence and sparking a love that could topple an empire. But can her voice withstand a dynasty built on power and control? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun shone brightly over Charleston, South Carolina, casting golden light across the sprawling Marwick estate. Roland Marwick stood at his office window, frowning as he looked out over the manicured gardens. At 60 years old, Roland was still an imposing figure, tall with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that could make business rivals shrink back in fear. "Jeffries," he called sharply, and his assistant appeared in the doorway immediately. "Yes, Mr. Marwick. Has my son confirmed he's attending the gala tonight?" Jeffries nodded. "Yes, sir. Mr. Graham said he would be here by 7. Roland grunted, turning back to the window. "And has he responded to my suggestion about meeting Eleanor Hastings? Her father owns half the shipping lanes on the East Coast. He said—" Jeffries hesitated. "He said he'd rather walk barefoot across broken glass, sir." Roland's face turned an angry shade of red. "That boy will be the death of me. 31 years old and still acting like a rebellious teenager." He slammed his fist on the desk. "The Marwick Shipping Company needs strong alliances if we're going to survive these changing times. A good marriage could secure our future. Perhaps Mr. Graham just hasn't met the right woman yet," Jeffries suggested carefully. "Well, he's running out of time," Roland muttered, "and so am I." Across town in a small apartment, Serena Miles gently closed the door to her mother's bedroom. The night shift at the hospital had been hard, and her mother needed rest. At 27, Serena was strikingly beautiful with warm brown skin, large expressive eyes and a quiet grace that turned heads wherever she went. She moved to the kitchen and picked up the employment agency notice. Staff needed for Marwick Spring Gala. One night only, $200. $200 would help with her mother's mounting medical bills. Since the diagnosis, Serena had taken whatever work she could find, putting her own dreams on hold. The phone rang and Serena answered quickly before it could wake her mother. "Hello? Serena, it's Aunt Naomi." Serena smiled at the sound of her aunt's voice. "Hi, Auntie. How are you?" "I'm fine, child. How's your mama doing today?" "The same. The new medication makes her tired, but at least it helps with the pain." There was a pause on the line. "And how are you? Still taking those temporary jobs?" "Yes. Actually, I'm working at the Marwick estate tonight. They're having some big party." "The Marwicks?" Aunt Naomi's voice sharpened. "Those people think they own Charleston." "It's just one night, Auntie, and it pays well. I still don't understand why you won't use that beautiful voice God gave you. You could be on any stage in the world." Serena closed her eyes, pain flashing across her face. "I can't. Not after what happened. Daniel Winters is one man, Serena. One bad man who tried to steal your music and your heart. Don't let him steal your future, too." "I have to go, Auntie. I need to get ready for work." After hanging up, Serena walked to her closet and pulled out the black uniform the agency had provided. As she dressed, her eyes fell on the piano in the corner of the living room, covered with a sheet. She hadn't played it in almost a year, not since leaving the conservatory. The memory was still painful. Daniel had been her teacher, her mentor, and eventually, she thought, her love. Until she discovered he'd been taking her original compositions and passing them off as his own. When she confronted him, he'd laughed. "Who do you think they'll believe? Me with my reputation? Or you, a scholarship girl from nowhere?" He'd been right. The conservatory had sided with him and Serena had left, her confidence shattered. She touched the covered piano, then quickly pulled her hand away. Some wounds were still too fresh. Graham Marwick adjusted his tie for the 3rd time, glaring at his reflection in the mirror. At 31, he had his father's height and strong jaw, but his eyes were softer, more like his late mother's. He ran his hand through his dark hair, messing up what his stylist had carefully arranged. "You look like you're heading to your execution, not a party," his sister Isabel said, appearing in the doorway of his apartment bedroom. Graham sighed. "It might as well be an execution. Dad's invited every eligible heiress on the eastern seaboard." Isabel laughed, crossing to straighten his tie again. At 25, she was the only Marwick who seemed untouched by the family's reputation for coldness. "Which poor girl is it this time?" "Eleanor Hastings," Isabel winced. "The one who talks only about her horses and her trips to Europe." "That's the one." "Well, I'll run interference if I can," Isabel promised. "But you know Dad won't stop until you're married off to someone he considers suitable." Graham's face hardened. "I'm not a pawn to be traded for business advantages." "No, you're the heir to the Marwick Empire," Isabel reminded him. "And that comes with expectations." The Marwick estate was buzzing with activity, as staff prepared for the annual spring gala. Serena reported to the kitchen entrance, where a harried-looking woman with a clipboard checked her name. "Miles, good, you're on dining room duty. Martha will show you what to do." Serena followed an older woman who explained her responsibilities for the evening. "Serve drinks, clear plates, remain invisible unless needed. The usual. One more thing," Martha added. "Mr. Marwick is very particular. Don't speak unless spoken to, and never, ever contradict the family or their guests." "I understand," Serena said quietly. As the evening approached, more staff arrived, and the mansion filled with flowers, music, and the buzz of activity. Serena was assigned to help in the grand ballroom, where floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Charleston Harbor. "Isn't it something?" whispered another server, a young woman named Tina. "They say the chandelier alone cost more than most people make in 5 years." Serena nodded, taking in the opulence around her. Crystals sparkled everywhere, fresh flowers adorned every surface, and the polished marble floor gleamed like water. "The guests will start arriving in 30 minutes, the head server announced. "Everyone to your positions." By 8 o'clock, the Marwick mansion was filled with Charleston's elite. Women in designer gowns dripping with jewels circulated alongside men in tailored tuxedos. Champagne flowed freely, and the air buzzed with conversation and laughter. Serena moved quietly through the crowd, offering drinks and taking empty glasses. She'd done this kind of work before and knew how to become nearly invisible. From her position near one of the large columns, she could see Roland Marwick holding court with several business associates. Next to him stood a beautiful young woman in a red dress who kept glancing around the room as if looking for someone. "That's Eleanor Hastings," Tina whispered as she passed by. "They say Mr. Marwick wants her to marry his son." Serena watched as Roland's face tightened with irritation. Following his gaze, she saw a tall, handsome man entering the ballroom. Even from a distance, she could tell this was Roland's son. They had the same strong jaw and commanding presence. But where the father's face showed calculation and control, the son's features held a kind of weariness. "There he is," Tina said unnecessarily. "Graham Marwick. Quite a catch, don't you think?" Serena didn't answer, continuing with her work. It wasn't her place to have opinions about the guests. Graham made his way through the crowd, nodding and smiling automatically at people who greeted him. When he reached his father, Roland put an arm around his shoulders in a gesture that looked affectionate, but felt like a vice. "Graham, finally. You remember Eleanor Hastings, don't you?" Graham nodded politely. "Of course. Nice to see you again, Eleanor." The young woman beamed up at him. "It's been too long, Graham. I was just telling your father about Daddy's new yacht." Serena moved away, circulating with her tray of drinks. Throughout the evening, she caught glimpses of Graham being introduced to one young woman after another. Each time his smile became more forced, his posture more rigid. By 10 o'clock, the gala was in full swing. The orchestra played softly in the background as couples danced and groups chatted. Serena was taking a brief break in the hallway when she heard raised voices coming from a nearby room. The door was slightly ajar, and she couldn't help overhearing. "I'm not going to marry Eleanor Hastings or anyone else you pick out for me." It was Graham's voice, tight with anger. "You're being childish," Roland snapped back. "The company is struggling. The Hastings connection would give us the leverage we need to secure new contracts. So use business strategies, not my personal life. This family has built alliances through marriage for generations. It's how we've survived. Maybe it's time for new methods." There was a sound, like someone slamming a hand on a desk. "This isn't a debate, Graham. You've rejected every suitable woman I've introduced you to. Your mother would be ashamed. Don't you dare use Mom to manipulate me." Serena moved quickly away as the door opened fully. Graham stormed out, nearly colliding with her. For a brief moment their eyes met, and Serena saw raw pain in his gaze before he looked away and continued down the hall. Dinner was served at 11, and the guests took their seats at elegantly set tables. Serena helped serve the 5-course meal, moving efficiently between the kitchen and dining room. After dessert, Roland Marwick stood and tapped his glass for attention. The room quieted as all eyes turned to him. "Friends, thank you for joining us for our annual spring gala. As many of you know, this event was my late wife Catherine's favorite tradition." He paused, and for a moment, genuine emotion crossed his face. She believed in bringing beauty and culture into our home. Serena, standing against the wall with the other servers, noticed Graham's expression soften at the mention of his mother. Roland continued. "Catherine was a great supporter of the arts, particularly music. She believed it revealed the true character of a person." His gaze found Graham, who was staring stonily at his water glass. Which brings me to something that's been on my mind lately. The room grew quieter as Roland's tone changed, becoming more pointed. My son seems determined to reject every fine young woman in Charleston. There was uncomfortable laughter from the guests. He tells me he's waiting for someone special, someone with depth. Graham's head snapped up, his face flushing with anger and embarrassment. Roland smiled tightly. So I've been thinking, what reveals depth of character better than music? He raised his glass higher. Fine. If a woman in this house can carry a real note, a single soul-deep note, my son will marry her. More laughter rippled through the crowd, but it had an uneasy edge. Graham's face had gone from red to white with fury. Eleanor Hastings stood up immediately. I studied piano for 12 years, Mr. Marwick. Would you like me to play something? Roland waved his hand. No, my dear. I'm talking about singing. The human voice can't lie. He looked around the room challengingly. Any takers? Come now, don't be shy. Several young women exchanged glances, but no one moved. Singing in public, unplanned, was a risk few were willing to take. Serena, who had been collecting empty dessert plates, felt something stir inside her, a mixture of indignation and memory. The way Roland was using music as a tool for manipulation touched a nerve. Music wasn't a parlor trick or a test. It was sacred. Before she fully realized what she was doing, she had stepped forward. The tray in her hands was carefully placed on a side table. May I? The words came out clear and steady, surprising even herself. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Roland Marwick looked taken aback, then amused. Well, one of the staff wants to try. He gestured grandly to the piano in the corner. By all means. Serena walked calmly to the piano, aware of the stares following her. She could feel the weight of judgment, the assumption that this was an act of presumption, maybe even desperation. But as she reached the piano, something changed inside her. This wasn't about the Marwicks or their challenge. This was about reclaiming what had been taken from her. Her voice, her confidence, her joy in music. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on the keys. For a moment, she closed her eyes, remembering her mother's words from long ago. When you sing, don't sing for anyone but yourself and God. The first notes of the piano filled the room. Serena had chosen a piece that few would recognize, one of her own compositions, one that Daniel had stolen. It began softly, a gentle melody that spoke of longing and loss, and then she began to sing. Her voice, rich and smooth as honey, filled the room. The words were simple, a poem about a bird that had forgotten how to fly until the wind reminded it of its wings. But it wasn't the words that mattered. It was the emotion behind them, the depth of feeling that transformed mere notes into something transcendent. As she sang, Serena forgot where she was, forgot the wealthy audience, forgot the years of silence, forgot everything except the music flowing through her. This was what she had been born to do. The final note hung in the air, pure and perfect, resonating with such emotion that several guests had tears in their eyes. When Serena opened her eyes, the room was absolutely still. No one moved or spoke. She stood up from the piano and smoothed her uniform, suddenly self-conscious again. Graham Marwick was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Slowly he stood up. The sound of his chair scraping back broke the silence. He walked across the room toward her, his eyes never leaving her face. When he reached her, he stopped, looking down at her with wonder and something else, recognition, as if he'd found something he hadn't known he was searching for. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice low and intense. "Serena Miles. Then I'd like to meet you again without the uniform." Behind them, Roland Marwick's face had turned to stone, and Eleanor Hastings looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. But in that moment, with Graham looking at her as if really seeing her, Serena couldn't bring herself to care. Something had shifted in the elegant ballroom of the Marwick estate. A note had been sung, a connection made, and nothing would be quite the same again. The silence that followed Graham's words seemed to stretch on forever. Guests exchanged shocked glances, forks clattered against china plates, and someone near the back of the room gasped loudly. Serena stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. She hadn't meant to draw attention to herself. She'd only wanted to reclaim her voice, if only for a moment. Roland Marwick's chair scraped against the floor as he stood up abruptly. His face had turned an alarming shade of red. "Graham," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "A word, please. In my study, now." Without waiting for an answer, Roland strode from the dining room. The guests began to murmur among themselves, casting curious glances at Serena. Graham hesitated, his eyes still locked with Serena's. "Don't leave," he said quietly. "Please." Before she could respond, he turned and followed his father. As soon as they were gone, the room erupted into conversation. Serena felt dozens of eyes on her as she quickly moved back to her position against the wall. Tina appeared at her side, eyes wide. "What were you thinking?" she whispered. "The Marwicks don't like it when the help draws attention to themselves." "I don't know what came over me," Serena admitted. "Well, you'd better get back to work before you get fired. Mrs. Peterson is looking for you in the kitchen." Serena nodded and slipped out of the dining room, grateful for the excuse to escape the stares and whispers. In Roland's study, the air was thick with tension. Roland paced behind his massive mahogany desk, while Graham stood near the door, arms crossed defensively. "Have you lost your mind?" Roland demanded. "Making a spectacle of yourself over a maid?" "She's not just a maid," Graham replied. "You heard her sing. Yes, she has a nice voice. That doesn't change who she is or who you are." Roland slammed his hand on the desk. "You are a Marwick. The future of this company depends on you making the right connections, the right marriage." Graham's jaw tightened. "The right marriage? You mean one that benefits Marwick shipping, not one that might actually make me happy. Don't be naive. People in our position don't have the luxury of marrying for love. Your mother understood that. Don't bring Mom into this." Graham's voice had gone dangerously quiet. She would have respected anyone with talent and dignity, regardless of their background. Roland snorted. "Your mother was an idealist, and look where that got her. Disappointed and disillusioned in the end." Graham took a step forward, anger flashing in his eyes. "That's not true. Mum was happy with you until you started putting business before everything else, before you became obsessed with status and connections." "Enough!" Roland's face was flushed with anger. "I forbid you to pursue this girl. She's the help, Graham. This isn't a fairy tale. You marry her, we lose everything. Respect, connections, contracts, everything I've spent my life building." Graham stared at his father for a long moment. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out of the study, closing the door firmly behind him. In the kitchen, Serena kept her head down as she helped clean up after the dinner. The other staff members kept shooting curious glances her way, but no one said anything directly to her. "Miss Miles." Serena looked up to see Mrs. Peterson, the housekeeper, standing in the doorway. "Yes, ma'am?" "Come with me, please." Serena's stomach dropped. This was it. She was about to be fired. She wiped her hands on a towel and followed Mrs. Peterson into a small office off the main kitchen. To her surprise, Isabel Marwick was waiting inside. Up close, she was even prettier than Serena had thought. Delicate features, warm brown eyes, and a kind smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. I'd like to speak with Miss Miles alone, please." When the door closed, Isabel gestured to a chair. "Please sit down. I'm Isabel Marwick, Graham's sister." "I know who you are," Serena said, perching nervously on the edge of the chair. "Am I being fired?" Isabel laughed. "No, nothing like that. Actually, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For your performance. It was beautiful." Isabel's expression grew serious. "And for waking up my brother. I haven't seen him look that alive in years." Serena shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble." "You didn't shock them because you were good," Isabel said, echoing Serena's thoughts. "You shocked them because they didn't think you were allowed to be." The words hung in the air between them, simple but profound. "My brother would like to speak with you," Isabel continued. "He asked me to give you this." She handed Serena a small card with a phone number written on it. "It's his private line. He hopes you'll call." Serena looked at the card, then back at Isabel. "Miss Marwick." "Isabel, please." "Isabel, I'm not sure this is a good idea. Your father seemed very upset." Isabel's smile turned wry. "My father is always upset when things don't go according to his plan. But Graham is 31 years old. It's time he started making his own decisions." She stood up. "Think about it. And for what it's worth, I hope you call." After Isabel left, Serena stared at the card in her hand. She should throw it away. Nothing good could come from getting involved with the Marwicks, and yet she slipped the card into her pocket. It was past midnight when Serena finally left the Marwick estate. The other staff members were still talking about what had happened, but Serena had kept to herself, focusing on finishing her work. She was exhausted as she walked down the long driveway toward the main road where she would catch the bus. The night air was cool and fragrant with jasmine. "Serena?" She startled at the sound of her name, turning to see Graham Marwick leaning against a sleek black car parked in the shadows. "Mr. Marwick." He pushed away from the car and walked toward her. In the moonlight, his face looked softer, less guarded than it had in the ballroom. "I was hoping to catch you before you left. Did Isabel give you my number?" Serena nodded. Yes, but you weren't planning to use it, he finished for her. I understand. Tonight was unusual. That's putting it mildly. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Where did you learn to sing like that? Serena hesitated, then decided there was no harm in answering. I studied at the Charleston Conservatory of Music for a while. What happened? Life happened. She looked away. I should go. The last bus leaves soon. Let me drive you home. She shook her head. That's not necessary. Please, it's late, and it's the least I can do after my father embarrassed you in front of everyone. He embarrassed you, not me, Serena corrected him. I chose to sing. Graham studied her face in the moonlight. Yes, you did. Why? The question caught her off guard. Why had she done it? I'm not sure, she admitted. Something about the way your father talked about music, like it was a test or a trick. Music isn't that, it's... She trailed off, suddenly self-conscious. It's what? Graham prompted gently. It's sacred. At least it should be. He nodded slowly as if she'd confirmed something he'd suspected. The bus stop is 2 miles away. Please, let me drive you home. Serena hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. As they drove through the quiet streets of Charleston, Serena found herself stealing glances at Graham's profile. Up close, he was even more handsome than she'd thought, but there was something sad about him too, a kind of weariness that seemed out of place in someone so young. You didn't want to be at that party, did you? She asked. Graham's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Is it that obvious? You looked like you were enduring it, not enjoying it. He laughed softly. That's exactly how it felt. I hate those events. Everyone watching, judging, calculating what they can get from you. Must be hard being a Marwick. He glanced at her, surprised. Most people think it's all privilege and luxury. Most people only see the surface. They fell silent for a moment. Then Graham asked, Where should I drop you? Serena gave him directions to her apartment building in a modest neighborhood far from the Marwick estate. When they arrived, Graham insisted on walking her to the door. Thank you for the ride, Serena said, keys in hand. Graham looked down at her, his expression unreadable in the dim hallway light. Thank you for your song. It was... He seemed to search for the right word. Honest. I haven't heard much honesty in a long time. Before Serena could respond, the apartment door opened to reveal a woman in her 60s, her face creased with worry. Serena, I was getting worried. You're usually home by... She stopped abruptly when she saw Graham. Aunt Naomi, this is Mr. Marwick. He gave me a ride home. Mr. Marwick, my aunt. Naomi Miles. Graham extended his hand. Please, call me Graham. Naomi looked him up and down, then shook his hand firmly. I know who you are. Your family owns half of Charleston. Not quite half, Graham said with a smile. Maybe a third. Naomi didn't smile back. Serena, your mother was asking for you earlier. She's asleep now, but she'll want to see you in the morning. I should go, Graham said, taking the hint. It was nice to meet you, Mrs. Miles. Miss Miles, Naomi corrected. Never married, Graham nodded. Miss Miles. He turned to Serena. I hope I'll see you again. After he left, Naomi closed the door and fixed Serena with a look. A Marwick? Girl? What are you thinking? He just gave me a ride home, Auntie. Mm-hmm. And I suppose he gives all the staff rides home? Serena sighed, too tired to argue. It's not like that. Something happened at the party. She told her aunt about Roland's challenge and her impulsive decision to sing. Naomi's expression softened. So you finally sang again. How did it feel? Like coming home, Serena admitted. Like I found a piece of myself that was missing. Naomi squeezed her shoulder. Your mama will be so happy to hear that. But be careful with that Marwick boy. People like that, they live in a different world. I know, Auntie. It was just a ride home. But as Serena got ready for bed, she wasn't so sure. The way Graham had looked at her after she sang, like he was seeing something rare and precious, had stirred feelings she thought were long buried, dangerous feelings. The next morning, Roland Marwick summoned Mrs. Peterson to his study. I want that maid fired, he said without preamble, the one who caused the scene last night. Mrs. Peterson looked uncomfortable. Sir, she was only responding to your challenge, and she's not actually our employee. She was hired through the agency for one night only. Roland waved his hand dismissively. Then make sure they don't send her again. And I want her name on a list of people not permitted on the property. Yes, sir. After Mrs. Peterson left, Roland picked up the phone and dialed a number. Marcus, Roland Marwick here. I need some information on a young woman named Serena Miles. Discreetly, of course. Graham arrived at his office later than usual. As the vice president of operations for Marwick Shipping, he normally kept a strict schedule, but last night had left him restless and unable to sleep. He couldn't get Serena's voice out of his head, or the look in her eyes when she sang, a mixture of pain and passion that had cut straight through his carefully constructed defenses. His assistant, Linda, handed him a stack of messages as soon as he walked in. "Your father called twice, and Eleanor Hastings would like you to call her back about dinner tonight." Graham sighed. "Tell Eleanor I'm tied up with work, and tell my father. Tell him I'll call him later. Also, the board meeting has been moved up to 10 o'clock. Graham checked his watch. That gave him less than an hour to prepare. He pushed thoughts of Serena aside and focused on work. The board meeting was tense. Roland dominated the discussion, presenting figures that showed Marwick shipping was losing ground to competitors. "We need new partnerships, new contracts," Roland concluded, his gaze pointedly landing on Graham. "If we don't secure the Hastings contract, we could be looking at significant layoffs by the end of the year." After the meeting, Roland caught up with Graham in the hallway. "Did you get my messages?" "Yes, I've been busy." "Too busy to call your father? Or too busy chasing after that maid?" Graham's jaw tightened. "Her name is Serena. I don't care what her name is. She's a distraction you can't afford right now. The company is all you care about," Graham finished. "I know." Roland's expression hardened. "It should be all you care about, too. This company is your legacy, your future. Maybe I want more than that." "Like what? Some romantic fantasy with a girl who's probably just after your money?" Graham's eyes flashed with anger. "You don't know anything about her. And you do? After one meeting?" Roland shook his head. "You're being naive, Graham. People like her see people like us as meal tickets. That's not who she is. How would you know? Because she can sing. Because she looked at you with those big, sad eyes." Roland's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Wake up, son. The real world doesn't work like that." Graham stared at his father for a long moment, then turned and walked away. He had work to do, and arguing with Roland would only make things worse. Serena spent the morning at the hospital with her mother. Louise Miles had once been vibrant and strong, but the cancer had whittled her down to a shadow of herself. Still, her smile was as warm as ever when she saw Serena. "There's my girl. How was the fancy party?" Serena sat on the edge of the hospital bed and took her mother's hand. "It was interesting." "Interesting? That doesn't sound good." Serena hesitated, then decided to tell her mother everything. As she recounted the story, Louise's eyes grew wide. "You sang? In public?" When Serena nodded, Louise squeezed her hand weakly. "Oh, baby, I'm so proud of you. Your voice is a gift. It shouldn't be hidden away." "It felt good," Serena admitted. "Really good. And this young man, the son, he noticed you. He drove me home." Louise's eyebrows rose. "Did he now? And what did Naomi have to say about that?" Serena laughed. "What do you think? She practically pushed him out the door." "That sounds like my sister." Louise's expression grew serious. "Be careful, Serena. I'm not saying it couldn't work, but people with money like that, they live differently. They see the world differently." "Mom, it was just a ride home. I probably won't ever see him again." But even as she said the words, Serena wasn't sure she believed them. The way Graham had looked at her, the connection she'd felt. It wasn't something easily forgotten. The nurse came in to administer Louise's medication, and Serena stood up. "I'll let you rest. I'll be back this evening." As she left the hospital, Serena checked her phone. There was a message from the employment agency. "Call us ASAP regarding last night's assignment." With a sinking feeling, Serena called the number. "Miss Miles," the agency director said coolly, "I've received a complaint about your behavior at the Marwick estate last night." "What complaint?" "I did my job. According to Mrs. Peterson, you drew undue attention to yourself and disrupted the event." Serena closed her eyes, leaning against the hospital wall. "I sang, at Mr. Marwick's request. He challenged the guests to sing." "He didn't mean the staff," the director said sharply. "In any case, we won't be sending you to the Marwick estate again, and several other clients have requested that you not be assigned to their events either." "What? Why?" "Word spreads quickly in Charleston society, Miss Miles. No one wants staff who don't know their place." After the call ended, Serena stared at her phone in disbelief. One moment of claiming her voice, and now she was being blacklisted from the best-paying jobs in town. She was still standing there when her phone rang again. Unknown number. "Hello? Serena? It's Graham Marwick." Her heart skipped a beat. "How did you get my number?" "From the agency. I hope you don't mind." Serena thought about the call she'd just received. "Actually, I do mind. Your family just got me blacklisted from half the jobs in Charleston." There was a pause. What are you talking about?" "The agency just called. They won't be sending me to your house again, or to several other houses, apparently. I had nothing to do with that, Graham said, his voice tight with anger. It must have been my father. I'm sorry, Serena. I'll fix it. You can't fix everything with money and influence, Mr. Marwick. Graham. Please call me Graham. He sighed. And you're right. I can't fix everything, but I can try to make this right. Let me help. I don't need your help. I need to work. Then let me offer you a job. Serena frowned. What kind of job? My sister is hosting a charity event next week. She needs someone to perform. It pays $500 for one evening. Serena's breath caught. $500 would cover her mother's medication for a month. Why me? Because you're talented, because you deserve to be heard, and because I'd like to see you again, Graham added softly. Serena closed her eyes, weighing her options. She needed the money, and despite everything, she wanted to see Graham again too. All right, but I'm doing this for the money, not for you. She could hear the smile in his voice as he replied, Of course, I'll have Isabel call you with the details. After they hung up, Serena stood in the hospital hallway, a mixture of emotions swirling inside her. Excitement, apprehension, and something else, a dangerous flutter of hope that she tried hard to ignore. That evening, Serena practiced for the first time in nearly a year. She uncovered the piano, her fingers trembling slightly as they hovered over the keys. Then she began to play, softly at first, then with growing confidence. Aunt Naomi found her there an hour later, lost in the music. Well, well, Naomi said, leaning against the doorframe. Look who's back. Serena smiled without stopping her playing. It feels good, Auntie. I knew it would. Your gift wasn't meant to be buried. Naomi sat down beside her on the piano bench. So what changed your mind? Serena told her about Graham's offer, the charity event, the $500. Naomi's expression was skeptical. And you think his father will just let this happen, after he had you blacklisted? It's his sister's event, not his father's, and I need the money, Auntie. Just be careful, child. Men like Graham Marwick are used to getting what they want. It's just a job, Serena insisted, but deep down she knew it was more than that. The way Graham had looked at her, the way he'd spoken to her, not as a maid or a performer, but as a person worth knowing, had awakened something in her that had been dormant for too long. The week passed quickly. Serena divided her time between the hospital, practicing for the charity event, and looking for other work. The agency hadn't officially fired her, but they hadn't called with any new assignments either. On Wednesday, Isabel Marwick called to discuss the details of the charity event. It's at the Charleston Arts Center, Isabel explained. Very casual compared to my father's parties, just cocktails and a short program to raise money for music education in public schools. That sounds wonderful, Serena said sincerely. Music education had changed her life as a child. Graham tells me you studied at the conservatory. What happened, if you don't mind my asking? Serena hesitated. It's complicated. I understand. You don't have to tell me. Isabel paused. But whatever it was, I'm glad it didn't stop you completely. Your voice is too beautiful to be silenced. After making arrangements to meet at the Arts Center the day before the event for a rehearsal, Isabel added, Oh, and Serena, my brother hasn't stopped talking about you all week, just so you know. Serena's cheeks warmed. I'm just performing at your event, Isabel, that's all. Of course, Isabel said, but her tone suggested she didn't believe it for a minute. On Friday afternoon, Serena arrived at the Charleston Arts Center for her rehearsal. The space was smaller and more intimate than she had expected, a renovated warehouse with exposed brick walls and a small stage at one end. Isabel was waiting for her, dressed casually in jeans and a simple blouse, looking nothing like the polished society woman from the gala. Serena, right on time. Come in, come in. The piano is all set up for you. As Serena approached the stage, she was surprised to see Graham sitting in one of the chairs near the front. He stood up when he saw her, a smile spreading across his face. I hope you don't mind, he said. I wanted to hear you rehearse. Serena's heart did that strange skipping thing again. It's fine. For the next hour, she worked with the sound technician, adjusting levels and running through her set list. She had chosen 3 songs, a classical piece, a jazz standard, and one of her own compositions. As she played and sang, she found herself stealing glances at Graham, who watched her with undisguised admiration. After the rehearsal, as the technician packed up his equipment, Graham approached the stage. That was beautiful, he said. Even better than at the gala, if that's possible. Thank you. I've had more time to practice. Would you like to get some coffee? There's a great little place around the corner. Serena hesitated, looking at Isabel, who was suddenly very interested in her phone. Don't mind me, Isabel said, not looking up. "I have some calls to make. You two go ahead." 20 minutes later, Serena found herself sitting across from Graham at a small table in a cozy cafe. It felt strange being with him like this, not as a maid or a performer, but almost like a date. "I want to apologize again for what happened with the agency," Graham said, his expression serious. "I've spoken to them, and they've agreed to continue working with you." Serena raised an eyebrow. "And how did you manage that?" "I may have mentioned that Marwick Shipping uses their services for all our corporate events." Graham smiled slightly. "And that we'd be very disappointed if they let go of someone with your talents." "So you threatened them?" "I persuaded them." Graham's smile faded. "I'm not my father, Serena. I don't believe in using power to hurt people, but you don't mind using it to help people you like. Is that so wrong?" Serena considered this. "I suppose not, but it still feels uneven." Graham nodded slowly. "I understand that, and I respect it." He leaned forward. "So tell me about the conservatory. What happened?" The question caught her off guard. Serena took a sip of her coffee, buying time. "It's not a very interesting story." "I think it is. You don't just walk away from talent like yours without a reason." Serena looked down at her cup. "I had a teacher there, Daniel Winters. He was well-respected, talented. I thought he believed in me." She swallowed hard. "We became close, and I trusted him with my music, original compositions I'd been working on for years." Graham's expression darkened. "He stole them." Serena nodded. "He presented them as his own at a major competition. When I confronted him, he laughed. Said no one would believe me over him." She shrugged, trying to make it seem less painful than it was. "He was right. The conservatory sided with him. So I left. That's why you stopped singing. It felt like he'd taken everything from me. My music, my trust, my voice." Graham reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was warm and surprisingly gentle for such a strong-looking man. "He didn't take your voice, Serena. No one can do that unless you let them." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "I'm starting to realize that." They talked for another hour about music, about Charleston, about their families. Graham told her about growing up under Roland's strict expectations, about losing his mother to cancer when he was 16, about his dream of turning Marwick Shipping into something more sustainable and ethical. Serena found herself opening up too, sharing stories about her childhood in a house filled with music, about her mother's illness, about her aunt's unwavering support. It felt easy talking to Graham, easier than it should have been, given who they were. As they were leaving the cafe, Graham said, "I'd like to see you again after the charity event." Serena looked up at him. "Graham, your father had me blacklisted just for singing at his party. What do you think he'd do if he knew you were seeing me socially?" Graham's expression hardened. "I don't care what he thinks. I'm 31 years old. I can make my own decisions." "It's not that simple, and you know it. Your family, your company, are important to me," Graham finished, "but so is being true to myself." He took her hand again. "For the first time in years, I feel like I've found something real, someone real. I don't want to walk away from that." Serena felt torn. Standing there with Graham, his hand holding hers, everything seemed possible. But she knew how the world worked. People like the Marwicks didn't end up with people like her. "Let's just get through tomorrow night," she said finally. "Then we'll see." Graham nodded, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. "I'll pick you up at 6. As Serena rode the bus home, she tried to make sense of her feelings. Graham was kind, thoughtful, different from what she would have expected, but getting involved with him would only lead to heartache. Roland Marwick would never accept her, and the society Graham moved in would always see her as an outsider. And yet, the way Graham looked at her, the way he listened when she spoke, the way he seemed to see past all the barriers between them, it made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, some risks were worth taking. At the Marwick estate, Roland was reviewing the information his private investigator had gathered on Serena Miles. "Single 27, lives with her aunt and her mother who has stage 4 cancer," Roland read aloud. "Attended the Charleston Conservatory on scholarship, but left before graduating. Works temporary jobs through Taylor Staffing Agency." He looked up at the investigator. "Is there anything I can use here?" The investigator shifted uncomfortably. "There was an incident at the conservatory. Something to do with a professor named Daniel Winters. The details are unclear, but she left shortly after filing a complaint against him." Roland's eyes narrowed. "Find out exactly what happened, and find this Daniel Winters. I want to talk to him." After the investigator left, Roland poured himself a drink and stood looking out the window. He had built Marwick Shipping from a respectable family business into a regional powerhouse. He had sacrificed everything for it. Time with his wife before she died, his relationship with his children, even his own happiness. He wasn't about to let some girl with a pretty voice destroy his legacy. Graham would come to his senses, or Roland would make sure this Serena Miles disappeared from his son's life one way or another. The sound of the front door opening and closing interrupted his thoughts. Graham walked past the study doorway without stopping. "Graham," Roland called. "Come in here." Graham paused, then reluctantly entered the study. "What is it, Dad? I'm tired." "Where have you been?" "Out. With that girl, the maid." Graham's expression hardened. "Her name is Serena, and yes, I was with her. We had coffee after her rehearsal for Isabel's charity event." Roland set his glass down carefully. "So it's true. Isabel hired her to perform." "Yes, because she's talented and deserves to be heard." "And you encouraged this?" Graham met his father's gaze steadily. "Yes, I did." Roland sighed, changing tactics. "Son, I understand the appeal. She's pretty, she has talent, but you have to think about your position, your responsibilities." "I know my responsibilities, Dad. To the company, to the family, but I also have a responsibility to myself." "And what about our employees? The people who depend on Marwick shipping for their livelihoods? If we lose the Hastings contract because you're chasing after some girl instead of building the right alliances—" "Don't," Graham interrupted, his voice sharp. "Don't use the employees as pawns in this game. If you really cared about them, you would have modernized the fleet years ago instead of buying that second yacht." Roland's face flushed with anger. "For you ungrateful, I'm going to bed," Graham cut him off. "Good night, Dad." As he climbed the stairs to his room, he'd moved back into the family home temporarily while his apartment was being renovated. Graham knew the battle with his father was just beginning. Roland wouldn't give up easily, he never did. But neither would Graham, not this time. Not when, for the first time in years, he'd found something, someone worth fighting for. The day of the charity event arrived, and Serena spent the morning at her mother's bedside in the hospital. Louise was having a good day. Her color was better, and she was sitting up, looking through old photo albums. "Look at this one," Louise said, pointing to a faded photograph of a teenage Serena standing on a small stage with a trophy. "Your first singing competition. You were so nervous you nearly threw up backstage." Serena smiled at the memory. "And you told me that butterflies in my stomach meant the music mattered. It still matters, doesn't it?" Louise reached for her daughter's hand. "I can see it in your eyes. You've got that spark again." Serena nodded, unable to deny it. "I'm singing tonight at a charity event." "I know, Naomi told me." Louise squeezed her hand weakly. "She also told me about that young man, the Marwick boy." "Graham," Serena said softly. "He's not what I expected." "How so?" "He's kind, thoughtful. He listens when I talk," Serena sighed. "But his father hates me, had me blacklisted from jobs all over town." Louise's expression hardened. "That doesn't surprise me. Men like Roland Marwick think they own the world." "You know him." "Of him," Louise corrected. "Your father worked on the docks for Marwick Shipping, remember? Before the accident. Roland cut all the workers' benefits that year. Your father lost his health insurance 3 months before he died." Serena stared at her mother in shock. "I didn't know." "You were young, and your father didn't want you to know how bad things were." Louise's eyes grew sad. "He was so proud of you, of your music. He didn't want anything to dim that light." Serena sat back, trying to process this new information. Her father had worked for Marwick Shipping, had died without benefits because of Roland's cutbacks. How had she never known this? "Mom, why didn't you tell me this before?" Louise shrugged. "What good would it have done? The past is past." She fixed Serena with a serious look. "But now you need to know what kind of man Roland Marwick is. Be careful, baby. Men like that don't change." "Graham isn't his father," Serena insisted. "Maybe not, but he was raised by him." Louise closed the photo album. "Just promise me you'll protect your heart and your voice. Don't let anyone take those from you again." "I promise, Mom." As Serena left the hospital, her mind was spinning. Her father had worked for Marwick Shipping, had lost his benefits because of Roland's decisions. It felt like the universe was sending her a warning. Stay away from the Marwicks. But it was too late. She had already agreed to sing at Isabel's event, and despite everything, she couldn't deny her growing feelings for Graham. At 5:30, Serena was putting the finishing touches on her makeup when there was a knock at the apartment door. Aunt Naomi answered it. "Mr. Marwick," she said coolly. "Ah, you're early." "Please call me Graham," he replied, "and I apologize for the early arrival. Traffic was lighter than I expected." Serena emerged from her bedroom in a simple but elegant blue dress. She had found it at a second-hand shop years ago and saved it for special occasions. Graham's face lit up when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said softly. Serena felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you." Aunt Naomi looked between them, her expression guarded. "What time will you have her home?" "Auntie," Serena protested, "I'm 27, and I'm still asking," Naomi said firmly. Graham smiled. "The event ends at 10. I'll have her home by 11 at the latest." Naomi nodded, seemingly satisfied. "See that you do." As they walked to Graham's car, Serena apologized. "My aunt is a little overprotective." "I think it's nice," Graham said, opening the passenger door for her. "She cares about you." On the drive to the arts center, Serena was quiet, thinking about what her mother had told her. "Is everything okay?" Graham asked, glancing at her. "My mother told me something today," Serena said slowly. "About my father." "What about him?" "He worked for your family's company, Marwick Shipping." She turned to look at Graham. "Did you know?" Graham frowned. "No, I didn't." "When was this?" "About 20 years ago. He died in an accident shortly after your father cut the workers' health benefits." Graham's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I'm sorry, Serena. I was just a kid then. I didn't know about the benefits being cut." "It's not your fault," Serena said, "but it makes things complicated." Graham pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face her. "Listen to me. I'm not my father. I don't agree with how he runs the company or how he treats people. That's why I've been fighting him for years to change things. And yet you still work for him, live in his house, accept his money." Graham's expression grew pained. "It's complicated. The company employs hundreds of people. If I walk away, what happens to them? But if I stay, maybe I can change things from the inside." He reached for her hand. "Please don't let this come between us." Serena looked down at their joined hands. "I don't know if I can separate you from your family, Graham. Or if you can, really. Just give me a chance to show you who I am. Not as a Marwick, but as a man." She met his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. Despite her doubts, she nodded. "Okay." They arrived at the Charleston Arts Center as the first guests were arriving. Isabel met them at the door, looking elegant in a simple black dress. "Serena, you look amazing." She hugged Serena warmly, then whispered in her ear, "Don't worry about tonight. Just sing from your heart like you did at the gala." The charity event was much more relaxed than Roland's formal gala. The crowd was younger, more diverse, and seemed genuinely interested in the cause of music education. Serena was scheduled to perform in an hour, giving her time to settle her nerves. Graham introduced her to several people, all of whom treated her with respect and interest once they heard she was the evening's performer. It was a strange feeling, being treated as someone of value rather than as invisible staff. "Graham Marwick, as I live and breathe." They turned to see a tall, elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair. She was around Roland's age, but carried herself with a warmth that Roland entirely lacked. "Mrs. Harmon," Graham said, smiling genuinely. "It's wonderful to see you." He turned to Serena. "Serena, this is Victoria Harmon. She was my mother's best friend. Mrs. Harmon, this is Serena Miles, our performer tonight." Victoria Harmon's eyes lit up. "Ah, so you're the young woman I've been hearing about, the one who sang at Roland's gala and left everyone speechless." Serena blinked in surprise. "Word travels fast in Charleston," Victoria laughed. "Like wildfire, my dear." She studied Serena with kind eyes. "Catherine, Graham's mother, would have loved you. She was a great believer in the power of music to bring people together." "My mother told me Mrs. Marwick was a singer too," Serena said. Victoria nodded. "Yes, though Roland preferred she keep her talents private after they married. Such a shame. She had a lovely voice." She turned to Graham. "You know your father is here tonight." Graham frowned. "What?" "He never attends Isabel's events. He's in the back with the Hastings family. I think he's trying to salvage that shipping contract." Victoria shook her head. "That man never stops working." Graham's expression darkened. "Excuse me, I need to find Isabel." After he left, Victoria linked her arm through Serena's. "Walk with me, dear. I think we should get to know each other." As they strolled through the gallery, Victoria asked Serena about her music, her family, her dreams. There was something so easy about talking to her that Serena found herself opening up. "I lost my confidence for a while," Serena admitted, "after what happened at the conservatory." Victoria nodded knowingly. "With Daniel Winters." Serena stopped walking. "I know about that. Charleston is a small city, especially in music circles. What he did to you was unforgivable." Victoria's eyes flashed with anger. "He's done it to others too, you know, taking credit for his students' work. but no one has been brave enough to stand up to him. I tried, Serena said softly, but no one believed me. I believe you, Victoria said firmly, and so would Catherine if she were still with us. She squeezed Serena's arm. Don't let him steal any more of your music, my dear. The world needs to hear your voice. On the other side of the gallery, Graham found Isabel in heated conversation with their father. What are you doing here? Graham demanded, interrupting them. Roland turned, his expression cool. Supporting my daughter's charitable work, of course, and speaking with the Hastings family about our potential partnership. You've never shown any interest in Isabel's events before, Graham said skeptically. Perhaps I'm turning over a new leaf. Roland smiled thinly. I understand your friend is performing tonight. The way he said friend made Graham's jaw tighten. Yes, Serena is the featured performer. How nice. Roland's tone made it clear he thought it was anything but nice. By the way, I had an interesting conversation today with a gentleman named Daniel Winters. Do you know him? Graham's blood ran cold. What did you do? Nothing yet, just a friendly chat about music and talented students. Roland straightened his tie. He'll be joining us later. I thought it might be a nice surprise for Miss Miles to see her old mentor. You son of a... Graham! Isabel cut in, placing a warning hand on his arm. Not here. Graham took a deep breath, trying to control his anger. If you do anything to hurt Serena tonight, I swear... Calm down, Roland said dismissively. I'm just trying to reconnect old friends. If there's any discomfort, well, that would hardly be my fault, would it? Graham turned to Isabel. Did you know about this? She shook her head, looking distressed. No, I had no idea. I'll try to keep him away from Serena. It's almost time for her to perform, Graham said, checking his watch. I need to warn her. As he turned to leave, Roland called after him. By the way, son, Eleanor Hastings was asking about you. You might want to say hello, for the company's sake. Graham ignored him, weaving through the crowd to find Serena. He spotted her still talking with Victoria Harmon, looking more relaxed than she had all evening. Serena, he said, reaching her side, can I speak with you for a moment, privately? Victoria, sensing the tension, patted Serena's hand. I should find my husband anyway. Good luck with your performance, my dear. I can't wait to hear you sing. When she was gone, Serena looked at Graham with concern. What's wrong? You look upset. My father is here, Graham said, taking her hands in his. And he's invited Daniel Winters. Serena's face went pale. Daniel here? Why would he... She stopped, understanding dawning. He's trying to throw me off, to make me fail. I won't let that happen, Graham promised. We can cancel, reschedule. No, Serena's voice was firm. I won't run away, not this time. Her eyes flashed with determination. Your father thinks he can scare me away with ghosts from my past? He's wrong. Graham stared at her in admiration. Are you sure? I'm sure. Serena squared her shoulders. It's time I face Daniel anyway. Show him he has no power over me anymore. Before Graham could respond, Isabel appeared at their side. Serena, it's time. Are you ready? Serena nodded. Yes, I'm ready. As Isabel led her to the stage area, Graham scanned the crowd. He spotted his father near the back standing with the Hastings family, and next to them, a tall, thin man with graying blonde hair and cold eyes, Daniel Winters. Graham's hands curled into fists. If that man said one word to upset Serena, the lights dimmed, and Isabel stepped onto the small stage. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight to support music education in Charleston's public schools. Music has the power to transform lives, to heal wounds, to bring joy in dark times. She smiled warmly at the crowd. Tonight, we're privileged to hear from an extraordinary talent. Please welcome Serena Miles. The audience applauded as Serena walked onto the stage, her blue dress catching the light. She sat at the piano, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the crowd. For a moment, Graham saw her falter as her eyes found Daniel Winters in the back. Then her gaze shifted, finding Graham instead. He smiled encouragingly and something in her expression settled. Thank you for having me tonight, Serena said into the microphone. Music has always been my refuge, my joy, my voice when words failed me. Tonight I'd like to share 3 songs with you. The first is Debussy's Clair de Lune, which my father used to play for me when I was a child. Her fingers touched the keys, and the familiar, haunting melody filled the room. Graham watched as the audience fell under her spell, just as he had at the gala. There was something almost magical about the way Serena played, as if she became one with the music. When she finished the first piece, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Serena smiled, her confidence growing. For my second piece, I'd like to perform Summertime from Porgy and Bess. This was my mother's favorite. Her voice, rich and soulful, wrapped around the familiar melody, giving it new life. Graham glanced at his father and saw Roland watching with an unreadable expression. Next to him, Daniel Winters was frowning, his arms crossed defensively. The applause for Summertime was even stronger than for the first piece. People were leaning forward in their seats, captivated. Serena took a deep breath before announcing her final song. For my last piece tonight, I'd like to share something of my own. This is called Reclaiming, and it's about finding your voice after losing it. Graham saw Daniel Winters shift uncomfortably. This was it. Serena was taking back her power, her music, her voice. The song began softly, almost tentatively, like someone testing their footing on uncertain ground. Then it grew, building in confidence and strength, until Serena's voice soared through the room, powerful and unashamed. The lyrics spoke of betrayal, of silence, of finding the courage to sing again. They were personal, raw, unmistakably authentic. As she sang the final verse, her eyes found Daniel Winters in the crowd. You can steal my notes, my melodies, my trust, but my voice remains my own. In silence I found strength, in pain I found truth, and now I sing again, louder than before. When the final note faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then the room erupted in applause, people rising to their feet. Graham was the first to stand, clapping until his hands hurt, his heart swelling with pride and something deeper, something he was only now beginning to recognize as love. He looked for Daniel Winters and saw the man slipping out the back door, his face tight with anger or shame, perhaps both. Roland remained, his expression conflicted as he watched the audience's reaction to Serena. After the performance, people crowded around Serena, offering congratulations and praise. Victoria Harmon hugged her tightly, whispering something in her ear that made Serena smile. Isabel was beaming, fielding requests from other charity organizers who wanted Serena for their events. Graham waited patiently, letting Serena have her moment. When she finally made her way to him, her eyes were bright with joy and unshed tears. You were magnificent, he said simply, taking her hands in his. Thank you, she replied, for believing in me, for giving me this chance. You did it all yourself. He glanced toward the back of the room. Daniel left. I think your song hit its mark. Serena nodded. Good, but honestly, I wasn't singing for him. I was singing for me. Graham smiled, understanding. And my father? Still here, still watching us. Serena's expression grew serious. He won't give up easily, Graham. He hates the idea of us together. Let him hate it, I don't care. You should, came Roland's voice from behind them. The Hastings are leaving, Graham, without signing the contract. Graham turned to face his father. I'm sorry to hear that, but it's not my job to charm Eleanor into a business deal. Roland's eyes were cold. No, you'd rather waste your time with... Choose your next words very carefully, Graham interrupted, his voice low and dangerous. Roland looked from Graham to Serena, then back again. This isn't over, he said finally, before turning and walking away. Serena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. He really hates me. He doesn't know you, Graham said. And right now he's just angry because he's losing control. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Don't let him get to you. Tonight was your triumph. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and conversations. By the time the last guests were leaving, Serena was exhausted but exhilarated. Isabel handed her an envelope. Your payment, as promised, plus a little extra. You were the hit of the night. Serena tried to refuse the bonus, but Isabel insisted. You earned it. And I've already had 3 other organizations ask for your contact information. If you're interested, you could have regular performing gigs. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Isabel encouraged. Your voice deserves to be heard. As Graham drove Serena home, she was quiet, processing everything that had happened. Penny, for your thoughts, Graham said softly. I was just thinking about how much has changed in a week, Serena replied. Last Saturday I was serving drinks at your father's gala. Tonight I was the featured performer at a charity event. And next week? Graham asked. Serena smiled. I don't know, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. When they reached her apartment building, Graham walked her to the door. Under the dim hallway light, he looked at her with such tenderness that Serena's heart skipped a beat. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. I'm visiting my mother in the morning, but I'm free in the afternoon. I'll pick you up at 2. He hesitated, then leaned down and kissed her cheek softly. Good night, Serena. Good night, Graham. Inside the apartment, Aunt Naomi was waiting up, pretending to watch a late-night talk show. "How did it go?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Serena sank onto the couch beside her. "It was amazing, Auntie. People loved it. And Daniel Winters was there." Naomi's head snapped around. "That snake, what happened?" "I sang my song, the one he stole, right to his face." Serena couldn't help the smile of satisfaction. "He left before I finished." "Good riddance," Naomi said firmly. "And the Marwick boy? How was he?" "Supportive. Kind." Serena hesitated. "He wants to see me again tomorrow." Naomi studied her face. "You're falling for him, aren't you?" "I don't know," Serena lied. Then, more honestly, "Maybe. Yes. Be careful, child. His father is a powerful man, and from what you've told me he doesn't approve." "I know," Serena sighed. "But Graham isn't his father. He's different." "I hope so," Naomi said. "For your sake." The next morning, Serena brought her payment from the charity event to the hospital, using part of it to pay down her mother's mounting medical bills. The rest she deposited in her savings account, a small cushion against future emergencies. When she entered her mother's room, she was surprised to find Louise sitting up, looking better than she had in weeks. "Mom, you look great," Louise smiled. "I feel better today, and even better now that you're here. How did your performance go?" Serena sat on the edge of the bed and told her mother everything. The songs, the audience's reaction, Daniel's presence, Roland's hostility. "I'm so proud of you," Louise said, squeezing her hand. "You faced your fears, reclaimed your voice." "It felt good, Mom, really good." Louise's expression grew serious. "And the Marwick boy, Graham?" "He's picking me up at 2, Serena admitted. "We're spending the afternoon together." "You like him?" "I do. More than I should, probably." Louise was quiet for a moment. "You know, I met your father when everyone said I shouldn't. My parents thought he wasn't good enough for me because he worked on the docks." She smiled at the memory. "But I knew his heart, and that's what mattered." "You think I should give Graham a chance?" "I think you should follow your heart, but keep your eyes open too." Louise touched Serena's cheek. "Just remember who you are. Don't let anyone, not Roland Marwick, not Daniel Winters, not even Graham, make you forget your worth." Serena nodded, understanding. "I won't, Mom. I promise." Graham spent the morning at his office trying to focus on work. The Hastings contract was indeed in jeopardy. Eleanor's father had made it clear that unless Graham showed proper interest in his daughter, they would take their business elsewhere. Under normal circumstances, Graham would have been worried about the potential loss. Marwick Shipping needed the Hastings routes to stay competitive, but today all he could think about was Serena, her voice, her courage, her smile. His assistant knocked on the door. "Your father is here to see you." Graham sighed. "Send him in." Roland entered, looking tired but determined. "We need to talk about the Hastings contract." "There's nothing to talk about. I'm not going to date Eleanor to secure a business deal." Roland sat down heavily in the chair across from Graham's desk. "This isn't just about you and your feelings. It's about the 300 employees who depend on this company for their livelihoods. Don't use the employees as leverage, Dad. If you really cared about them, you would have updated our fleet years ago instead of maintaining those old ships that keep breaking down." Roland's face flushed with anger. "You think you know better than me how to run this company? I built it from nothing." "From nothing?" Graham raised an eyebrow. "Grandfather left you a successful regional shipping company. You expanded it, yes, but often at the expense of the people who worked for you." He leaned forward. "Like Thomas Miles." Roland frowned. "Who?" "Serena's father. He worked on our docks 20 years ago, died in an accident shortly after you cut employee health benefits." Roland's expression flickered with something like guilt, quickly masked. "I can't be expected to remember every employee who's ever worked for us." "No, but you should remember the policies that hurt them." Graham stood up. "I'm not going to sacrifice my personal happiness for business, Dad. Not the way you did." "Your mother understood the sacrifices necessary for success," Roland said stiffly. "Did she? Or did you just tell yourself that to feel better about neglecting her?" Graham's voice was sharp with old pain. "She died thinking you cared more about this company than you did about her." Roland's face went white. "That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you visited her in the hospital? You were in Tokyo, closing a deal." "I was building a future for our family, and missing the present." Graham shook his head. "I don't want to end up like you, Dad, alone, with nothing but a company to show for my life." Roland stood up slowly. "If you pursue this relationship with Serena Miles, you can forget about taking over as CEO when I retire. I'll sell the company first." Graham stared at his father, shocked by the threat. "You would destroy your own legacy out of spite? I built this company. I can do what I want with it. Roland straightened his jacket. The choice is yours, Graham, the company or the girl. After Roland left, Graham sat at his desk, his father's ultimatum ringing in his ears. The company or Serena, security or happiness, the path laid out for him or the uncertain road ahead. He thought of his mother, of how her eyes had lit up when she played the piano, of how that light had dimmed over the years of Roland's neglect. He thought of the employees who depended on Marwick shipping, of his responsibility to them, and he thought of Serena, of her courage in facing down her past, of the way she made him feel alive again after years of just going through the motions. At 2 o'clock, he pulled up outside Serena's apartment building. She was waiting on the steps, wearing a simple sundress, her hair loose around her shoulders. When she saw him, she smiled, and Graham felt something settle inside him. Whatever happened with the company, with his father, this feeling was worth fighting for. Serena noticed something was wrong as soon as she got into Graham's car. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, and there was tension in the set of his shoulders. "What happened?" she asked. Graham sighed. "My father came to see me this morning. He gave me an ultimatum. End things with you, or forget about taking over the company." Serena's heart sank. "Oh, he's threatening to sell Marwick shipping rather than let me run it if I continue seeing you. Graham, that's your future, your legacy. I would never want to come between you and that." He turned to look at her, his expression suddenly fierce. "It's my father's legacy, not mine, and maybe it's time I built something of my own." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I choose you, Serena. If that means walking away from Marwick shipping, then so be it." Serena stared at him, stunned by the declaration. "You can't make that kind of decision on a whim. We barely know each other." "I know enough," Graham said simply. "I know that when you sing, I feel more alive than I have in years. I know that you have more courage and integrity in your little finger than most people have in their entire bodies. I know that I want to see where this goes, and I'm not going to let my father's threats stop me." Serena felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever chosen her over something so important before. "Graham, I don't want you to regret this later, to resent me." "I won't." He took her hand. "But we can take it slow, see where things lead. My father may change his mind once he realizes I'm serious. Or he might not," Serena said realistically. "He seems like a man who means what he says. Then I'll deal with that when the time comes." Graham squeezed her hand. "Right now, I just want to spend the day with you. No talk of my father or the company or ultimatums, just us." Serena nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling that Roland Marwick wasn't done trying to separate them. A man like that didn't give up easily. They spent the afternoon walking through the historic district of Charleston, talking about everything and nothing. Graham told her about his dreams of modernizing the shipping fleet, of making it more environmentally friendly. Serena shared stories about her childhood, about the music that had shaped her life. As the sun began to set, they found themselves at the waterfront park, watching the ships in the harbor. Graham pointed to a large cargo vessel in the distance. "That's one of ours, the Catherine, named after my mother." Serena studied the ship, trying to imagine Graham's life, the responsibility, the legacy, the expectations. "It's strange to think of owning something that big." "I don't think of it as owning," Graham said thoughtfully. "More like stewardship. Those ships provide livelihoods for hundreds of people. That's what my father never understood. It's not about power or wealth. It's about responsibility." Serena looked at him with new understanding. "You really care about the company, don't you? Not just as a business, but as a community." "I do. That's why this decision is so hard." He turned to face her. "But I meant what I said earlier. I choose you, Serena." She reached up and touched his face gently. "Let's not make any big decisions yet. Give your father time to cool down. Give us time to be sure." Graham leaned into her touch, always the voice of reason. "One of us has to be," she teased. As they stood there in the fading light, Graham slowly leaned down and kissed her. Unlike the chaste kiss on the cheek from the night before, this was a real kiss, gentle but full of promise. Serena felt herself responding, her arms sliding around his neck as the world seemed to fade away around them. When they finally broke apart, Graham rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the first time I heard you sing." Serena smiled. "I've wanted you to." The moment was interrupted by the ringing of Graham's phone. He glanced at it and frowned. "It's Isabel. I should take this." He stepped away to answer, and Serena watched as his expression changed from annoyance to concern to alarm. "What? When?" "I'll be right there." He hung up and turned to Serena, his face pale. "It's my father. He's had a heart attack. They've taken him to Charleston Memorial. Oh my God, go, you need to be with him. Come with me, Graham said, taking her hand. Please. Serena hesitated. Graham, I don't think that's a good idea. Your father doesn't want me around. I don't care what he wants right now, I need you. The raw honesty in his voice decided her. All right, I'll come. They drove to the hospital in tense silence, Graham's knuckles white on the steering wheel. Serena wanted to offer comfort, but didn't know what to say. Roland Marwick might hate her, might be trying to keep her and Graham apart, but he was still Graham's father. At the hospital they found Isabel in the waiting room, her face streaked with tears. She hugged Graham tightly, then, to Serena's surprise, hugged her too. How is he? Graham asked. Stable for now. The doctors say it was a mild heart attack, but they're keeping him for observation. Isabel wiped her eyes. He was at the office, working late. His assistant found him collapsed at his desk. Can we see him? In a little while. They're running some tests. Isabel glanced at Serena. I'm glad you're here. Graham needs support. I'll wait out here, Serena said. You and Graham should see your father alone. Graham started to protest, but Serena squeezed his hand. It's okay. I'll be right here if you need me. As Graham and Isabel disappeared down the corridor, Serena sat in the waiting room, feeling out of place. This was Roland Marwick's territory, the man who had tried to destroy her career, who had threatened to disinherit his son over her. And yet here she was, because Graham had asked her to come. She was still sitting there an hour later when Graham returned, looking tired and troubled. How is he? She asked. Awake. Angry about being in the hospital. Graham ran a hand through his hair. The doctor says he needs to reduce his stress, change his diet, exercise more. All the things my father hates. At least he's okay. Physically, yes. Graham sat down beside her. But he's still the same stubborn man. Do you know what one of the first things he said to me was? If you think this changes anything between us, you're wrong. Serena winced. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's not your fault my father is. Graham trailed off, looking exhausted. I just don't understand why he's so against us being together. It's not like I'm asking to marry you tomorrow. Maybe it's not about me specifically, Serena suggested. Maybe it's about control, about you making your own choices instead of following his plan. Graham nodded slowly. That makes sense. He's always had my life mapped out. The right schools, the right career, the right wife. He took her hand. But I'm done letting him choose for me. Mr. Marwick. They looked up to see a doctor standing in the doorway. Your father is asking for you. Alone, she added, glancing at Serena. Graham squeezed Serena's hand. I'll be back soon. After he left, Serena stood up, needing to stretch her legs. She walked down the corridor looking for a coffee machine and found herself near the cardiac care unit where Roland was being treated. Through the window of one of the rooms, she could see Graham and his father in what appeared to be a heated discussion. Roland's face was flushed, and Graham was shaking his head emphatically. Serena started to turn away, not wanting to intrude, when a nurse approached her. Excuse me, are you Serena Miles? Surprised, Serena nodded. Mr. Marwick is asking for you. Roland Marwick? Asking for me? Serena couldn't hide her shock. The nurse nodded. Room 412. He was quite insistent. Serena hesitated, then walked slowly toward the room. Through the window she could see that Graham was gone now, and Roland was alone, staring at the ceiling. She knocked softly on the door, and Roland's head turned. Miss Miles, come in. Serena entered cautiously. Up close, Roland looked older, more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. The hospital gown and monitors attached to his chest stripped away the powerful businessman facade, leaving just a tired old man. You wanted to see me, Mr. Marwick? Roland gestured to the chair beside his bed. Sit down, please. Serena sat, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. How are you feeling? Like I've had a heart attack, Roland said dryly. The doctors tell me I need to reduce my stress. Apparently running a shipping company while my son throws away his future is bad for my health. Serena's jaw tightened. If that's why you wanted to see me, to blame me for your condition, I'll leave now. No, Roland said quickly. That's not why. He sighed, looking suddenly very tired. I wanted to make you an offer. An offer? $500,000. Serena stared at him in shock. Excuse me? $500,000 for you to leave Charleston. Leave my son alone. Start a new life somewhere else. Roland's eyes were cold despite his weakened state. Think of what that could do for your mother's medical care, for your own career. Serena stood up, anger coursing through her. I'm not for sale, Mr. Marwick, and neither is your son's happiness. Everyone has a price, Roland insisted. Name yours. You don't understand, do you? This isn't about money. It never was. Then what is it about? Power, status, the thrill of catching a Marwick? It's about connection, Serena said quietly. About feeling seen for who you really are. About finding someone who believes in you. She shook her head. I can't expect you to understand that. Roland's expression hardened. You think you know my son after what, a week? I've known him his entire life. I know what's best for him. No, you know what's best for Marwick shipping, Serena corrected him. There's a difference. Without the company, who is he? Just another rich boy with no purpose. Serena stared at Roland, suddenly seeing him clearly. You really believe that, don't you? That without the company, there's nothing of value. No wonder you're so afraid of losing control. Roland's face flushed with anger. Get out, now. Gladly. Serena moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Marwick, I care about your son. Not because of his name or his money, but because of who he is, his kindness, his integrity, his heart. All the things that have nothing to do with Marwick shipping. She left before Roland could respond, her heart pounding. In the hallway, she nearly collided with Graham. Serena, what were you doing in there? Your father wanted to see me, to make me an offer. Graham's expression darkened. What kind of offer? $500,000 to leave Charleston and never see you again. Graham's face went pale, then flushed with anger. I'm going to... No, Serena said firmly, taking his arm. Don't. He just had a heart attack, Graham, and he's scared. Scared? My father? Scared of losing control, of losing you to a life he doesn't understand. Serena sighed. In a strange way, I almost feel sorry for him. Graham shook his head in disbelief. How can you be so understanding after what he tried to do? Because I see a man who's built his entire identity around a company, who doesn't know how to value anything else. She touched Graham's face gently. And because I don't want you to lose your father, even if he is a stubborn, controlling man. Graham looked at her with wonder. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just trying to see the bigger picture. Serena glanced at her watch. It's getting late. I should go home. Aunt Naomi will be worried. I'll drive you. No, stay with your father. I can take a taxi. Graham hesitated, torn between duties. Are you sure? I'm sure. Serena stood on tiptoe and kissed him lightly. Call me tomorrow, okay? As she left the hospital, Serena felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at Roland's attempt to buy her off. Sympathy for a man so blinded by his own narrow vision that he couldn't see what truly mattered. And beneath it all, a growing certainty that what she felt for Graham was real and worth fighting for. But Roland Marwick was a powerful man, even from a hospital bed, and she had a feeling that his heart attack wouldn't change his determination to separate her from his son. If anything, it might make him more desperate. The battle for Graham's heart and future was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Roland Marwick's heart attack. The doctors had released him from the hospital with strict orders to rest and reduce stress, but Roland had immediately returned to work, ignoring medical advice. Serena and Graham's relationship had deepened despite Roland's continued opposition. They spent most evenings together, and Graham had become a regular visitor at the hospital where Louise was being treated. He had even befriended Aunt Naomi, who remained suspicious, but was gradually warming to him. Serena's musical career was blossoming too. After her performance at Isabel's charity event, she had received offers to perform at several other venues. Victoria Harmon had introduced her to friends in the music industry, and Serena now had regular weekend gigs at an upscale jazz club in downtown Charleston. But the shadow of Roland's disapproval hung over everything. He had not repeated his cash offer to Serena, but he had made it clear to Graham that his position remained unchanged. If Graham continued seeing Serena, he would lose his inheritance and his place in the company. On a warm Saturday morning in June, Serena was at her mother's bedside in the hospital. Louise had good days and bad days, and today was unfortunately one of the bad ones. She was pale and tired, barely able to lift her head from the pillow. I brought you some flowers, Serena said, arranging a bouquet of daisies, her mother's favorite, on the bedside table. They're from the community garden near our apartment. Louise smiled weakly. They're beautiful, baby. Thank you. Serena sat in the chair beside the bed and took her mother's hand. The doctor says your numbers are improving. The new medication seems to be working. Maybe, Louise said, though her eyes suggested she didn't believe it. Tell me something good. How are your performances going? Serena brightened. Really well. The owner of the Blue Note wants me to perform 3 nights a week instead of just weekends. And I've been working on some new songs. And Graham? How is he? He's good. Busy with work. Serena hesitated. His father is still giving him a hard time about me. Louise squeezed her daughter's hand. That old man needs to mind his own business. He thinks Graham is his business. Serena sighed. I hate that I'm causing problems between them. You're not causing anything. Roland Marwick is causing problems by being a controlling old fool. Louise's voice was firm, despite her weakness. Don't you dare take that on yourself. Serena nodded, though she couldn't help feeling responsible. Every day Graham was being forced to choose between her and his family legacy. It wasn't fair to him. I've been thinking about taking that offer to perform in New York, Serena said quietly. Just for a month or two. Give things a chance to cool down here. Louise's eyes sharpened. Is that what you want? Or are you running away to make things easier for Graham? Serena looked down. Maybe a little of both. Serena, look at me. Louise waited until her daughter met her eyes. Don't make decisions out of fear. Make them out of love. Love for yourself, for your music, for Graham if that's what you feel. But don't run away thinking it will solve anything. I just don't see how this ends well, Mom. Roland will never accept me. Maybe he won't. But that's not your problem to solve. Louise's voice softened. Your father faced the same kind of prejudice from my parents. They thought he wasn't good enough for me because he worked with his hands, but he didn't let that stop him from loving me. What did he do? Louise smiled at the memory. He showed up at my parents' house with his guitar, stood right on the front lawn and sang until my father came out. Then he said, Sir, I love your daughter. You can either accept that or not, but it won't change how I feel. Did it work? Not right away, but over time, yes. My father saw how happy your dad made me, and eventually that was enough. Louise's eyes grew serious. The point is, he didn't run away. He stood his ground with dignity and love. Serena nodded, understanding. I'll think about it. Good girl. Louise's eyes drifted closed. I'm a little tired now, but remember what I said. I will, Mum. Get some rest. As Serena left the hospital, her phone rang. It was Graham. Hey, she answered. I was just at the hospital with my mom. How is she? Not great today. The doctors say we just have to wait and see if the new medication helps. Serena sighed. What's up? I need to see you. Something's happened. The tension in Graham's voice made Serena's stomach clench. What is it? Is your father okay? He's fine, too fine. Graham's voice was tight with anger. Can you meet me at Waterfront Park in an hour? Of course. Graham, you're scaring me. What's going on? I'll explain everything when I see you. I promise. After they hung up, Serena stood on the hospital steps, worry gnawing at her. What had Roland done now? Graham was already waiting when Serena arrived at Waterfront Park. He was standing by the railing looking out at the harbour, his posture rigid with tension. When he turned and saw her, his expression was a mixture of anger and relief. Thanks for coming, he said, pulling her into a tight hug. Of course. Serena pulled back to look at his face. What's happened? Graham ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as a sign of deep frustration. My father has called an emergency board meeting for Monday. He's going to propose selling Marwick shipping to coastal marine industries. What? Why would he do that? To make sure I can't have it. Graham's voice was bitter. He's decided that if he can't control who I love, he'd rather sell the company to strangers than let me run it my way. Serena felt the blood drain from her face. This is because of me. No, Graham said firmly. This is because of him. Because he can't accept that I'm my own person, not just an extension of him. He took her hands in his. Serena, I need you to know that whatever happens with the company, I don't regret choosing you. Not for a second. But it's your legacy, your future, all those employees who depend on the company. I know. That's why I'm not giving up without a fight. Graham's eyes blazed with determination. Isabel and I have been talking to board members. Some of them are concerned about selling to Coastal Marine. They have a reputation for gutting companies and selling off the assets. Do you think you can stop the sale? Maybe. We need 7 votes out of 12 to block it. Right now we have 5 solid. 2 more are on the fence. Graham squeezed her hands. The meeting is Monday at 10. I need to convince those 2 board members by then. What can I do to help? Graham hesitated. One of the undecided board members is Victoria Harmon. She and my mother were best friends and she holds a significant number of shares. If she votes with us, others might follow her lead. Victoria? She's been so supportive of me. I know. And she likes me too. But she's worried about my father's health. She thinks the stress of me taking over against his wishes might kill him. Graham looked at Serena intently. She respects you, Serena. If you talk to her, explained how you feel about me, about us, it might help. Serena nodded slowly. I can try, but Graham, are you sure this is what you want? Fighting your father this way? I don't want to fight him, but I'm not going to let him destroy something my grandfather built, something that provides jobs for hundreds of people, just to punish me for falling in love. The word hung in the air between them. Love. They hadn't said it to each other yet, though Serena had felt it growing in her heart with each passing day. You love me? She asked softly. Graham's expression softened. Yes, I love you, Serena Miles, and I'm not going to let my father or anyone else tell me that's wrong. Serena felt tears prick her eyes. I love you too, and I'll do whatever I can to help you save your company. Graham pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like a shield against the world. For a moment, they stood together, drawing strength from each other. Victoria is hosting a garden party tomorrow afternoon, Graham said finally. She invites a few close friends every year to celebrate the blooming of her rose garden. My mother used to love it. He looked down at Serena. Would you come with me? It would be a chance to speak with her. Of course. But won't your father be there too? Probably. But there will be enough people that we can avoid a direct confrontation. Graham's jaw tightened. Though at this point, I'm not sure I care if he makes a scene. Let people see who he really is. No, Serena said firmly. That won't help. We need to be smarter than that, more dignified. Graham smiled slightly. You're right, as usual. He checked his watch. I need to go meet with another board member, but I'll pick you up tomorrow at 1 for Victoria's party. As they parted, Serena felt a mixture of emotions swirling inside her. Love for Graham, worry about his fight with Roland, and uncertainty about her own role in all this. She had never meant to come between father and son, to be the catalyst for such a dramatic family rift. But her mother's words came back to her. Don't make decisions out of fear. Make them out of love. She loved Graham, and she wouldn't run away from that, no matter how difficult the path ahead might be. Victoria Harmon's home was a beautifully preserved historic mansion just outside Charleston. The garden party was in full swing when Graham and Serena arrived, with about 50 guests mingling among the rose bushes, champagne glasses in hand. Serena felt nervous as they walked through the wrought iron gates. She was wearing a simple yellow sundress, the nicest thing in her closet, but she knew it would pale in comparison to the designer outfits of the other guests. Graham seemed to sense her anxiety. You look beautiful, he said, squeezing her hand. And Victoria will be thrilled you came. Sure enough, Victoria hurried over as soon as she spotted them, embracing Serena warmly. Serena, what a lovely surprise. Graham didn't tell me he was bringing you. She shot Graham a knowing look. Though I can't say I'm surprised. Thank you for having me, Serena said. Your garden is breathtaking. Catherine, Graham's mother, helped me plan it years ago. Victoria linked her arm through Serena's. Come, let me show you her favorite roses. Graham, darling, Robert Whitfield is looking for you. Something about a yacht race next month. As Victoria led her away, Serena glanced back at Graham, who nodded encouragingly. This was her chance to speak with Victoria privately. They walked through the garden, Victoria pointing out various roses and sharing stories about their origins. Finally, they reached a secluded bench beneath a pergola draped with climbing roses. Let's sit for a moment, Victoria suggested. These old legs need a rest. Once they were seated, Victoria turned to Serena with a knowing look. Now, my dear, tell me why you're really here. Graham could have brought any number of society girls to my party, but he brought you. There must be a reason. Serena hesitated, then decided honesty was the best approach. Graham told me about the board meeting on Monday, about Roland's plan to sell the company. Victoria's expression grew serious. I see. And Graham hopes I'll vote against the sale. Yes, he says you're one of the undecided votes. I am. Victoria sighed. It's a difficult position to be in. Roland is making a terrible mistake, driven by pride and anger, but opposing him might damage his health further. The doctors have warned that another heart attack could be fatal. I understand your concern, Serena said. I wouldn't want to be responsible for harming Roland's health either. But is selling the company really the answer? Won't that cause him just as much stress and heartache in the long run? Victoria considered this. Perhaps. But he sees it as maintaining control, his final act of defiance against Graham's independence. At the expense of hundreds of employees? At the expense of the company his own father built? Serena shook her head. That doesn't sound like control to me. It sounds like destruction. You care about the company, Victoria observed. Not just about Graham. I care about what matters to Graham, and the company matters to him, not for power or status, but because he feels responsible for the people who work there. Serena met Victoria's eyes directly. He wants to make it better, more sustainable. He has plans, ideas. I know. Catherine would be so proud of the man he's become. Victoria studied Serena's face. And she would have loved you, you know. You remind me of her. That same quiet strength, that passion for music. Graham told me she was a singer too. Yes, until Roland convinced her it wasn't appropriate for a Marwick wife to perform in public. Victoria's voice held old bitterness. She gave up so much for him, thinking he would change, become less rigid over time, but he only grew more controlling. I don't want Graham to give up anything for me, Serena said earnestly, but I don't want him to lose his company because of me either. Victoria patted her hand. Love is never simple, my dear, especially when it crosses the kind of boundaries that make people uncomfortable. She stood up. Come, we should rejoin the party. And Serena, thank you for your honesty. It means a great deal. As they walked back toward the main garden, Serena caught sight of Roland Marwick standing near the rose arbor, deep in conversation with another older man. He hadn't seen them yet. Perhaps we should go this way, Victoria suggested, noticing Serena's hesitation. Avoid any unpleasantness. But it was too late. Roland looked up and saw them, his conversation faltering. For a moment he simply stared, his expression hardening. Then he excused himself from his companion and walked deliberately toward them. Victoria squeezed Serena's arm. Stand your ground, my dear. Dignity above all. Roland stopped in front of them, his gaze cold. Victoria, I wasn't aware you knew Miss Miles. Oh yes, we've become quite well acquainted, Victoria replied smoothly. Serena performed beautifully at Isabel's charity event. Such a remarkable voice. Indeed, Roland's tone was dismissive. If you'll excuse us, I need to speak with Miss Miles privately. Victoria hesitated, looking at Serena. I can stay if you prefer. It's all right, Serena assured her. I'll be fine. After Victoria reluctantly walked away, Roland turned his cold gaze on Serena. You have some nerve showing up here. Graham invited me, Serena replied, keeping her voice calm. Victoria welcomed me. This is exactly the kind of social climbing I expected from you, using my son to gain access to people like Victoria Harmon. Serena felt her temper flare, but kept it carefully controlled. I'm not using anyone, Mr. Marwick. I'm here because Graham asked me to come because I care about him. Care about him or care about what he can give you? Access to society events? A comfortable lifestyle? I don't want your money or your social position, Serena said firmly. I never have. Then what do you want? Roland demanded. I want Graham to be happy. I want him to have the chance to run the company the way he believes it should be run. And yes, I want to be with him because I love him. Serena met Roland's gaze steadily. Is that so hard for you to understand? That someone might love your son for who he is, not what he has? Something flickered in Roland's eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps, or a moment of recognition. But it was quickly replaced by the familiar coldness. If you truly cared about Graham's happiness, you would walk away. Let him fulfill his destiny without the distraction of a inappropriate relationship. His destiny or the one you've chosen for him? Serena shook her head. Graham is a grown man capable of making his own choices, and he's chosen me, just as I've chosen him. Roland's face flushed with anger. This isn't over, Miss Miles. The board meeting is Monday. After that, Graham will have nothing to offer you. No company, no inheritance, nothing but himself. We'll see how long your love lasts then. Before Serena could respond, Graham appeared at her side, his expression tight with controlled anger. That's enough, Dad. You will not speak to Serena that way. Roland looked between them, his lips pressed into a thin line. This conversation is over anyway. Enjoy the party. It may be the last social event you're invited to once word gets out that you've been disinherited. As Roland walked away, Graham turned to Serena, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? What did he say to you? The usual threats and accusations. Serena tried to smile reassuringly. I'm fine, really. Just worried about you. Graham glanced in the direction his father had gone. He's desperate. The board members he thought were solid are wavering. They're concerned about Coastal Marine's reputation. Did you talk to Robert Whitfield? Yes, he's with us now. That makes 6 votes. Graham ran a hand through his hair. We just need one more. I spoke with Victoria, Serena said. She's conflicted, but I think she's listening. Thank you. Graham's expression softened. For doing this. For standing up to my father. For believing in me. Always, Serena said simply. The rest of the garden party passed without further incidents. Roland kept his distance, though Serena could feel his eyes on her occasionally. Victoria sought them out before they left, hugging Serena and whispering, "I'll be in touch before Monday." On the drive home, Graham was quiet, lost in thought. Serena didn't push, understanding he had a lot on his mind, but as they neared her apartment, he suddenly pulled the car over. "I can't do this," he said. Serena's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I can't keep putting you through this. My father's hostility, the social awkwardness, the whispers behind your back." Graham turned to face her. "You deserve better." "Graham, let me finish, please." He took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about this all week, and I've made a decision." Serena braced herself, fear coiling in her stomach. Was he ending things between them? "If the board votes to sell on Monday, I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm going to leave Marwick shipping." "And do what?" Serena asked, stunned. "Start fresh. Build something new." Graham took her hands in his. "I've been talking to some investors about a new shipping company. Smaller, more environmentally conscious, with better treatment of employees. They're interested. But the Marwick legacy will end with my father's bitterness if that's what he chooses." Graham's eyes were clear, certain. "I'm not going to spend my life fighting him, Serena. I'm going to build something of my own, something that reflects my values, not his." Serena stared at him, amazed by his resolve. "Are you sure about this?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything." He squeezed her hands. "Except how I feel about you." "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too." Graham leaned forward and kissed her softly. "Whatever happens on Monday, we'll face it together." Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor to Serena's apartment. She opened the door to find Victoria Harmon standing there, elegant even in casual weekend attire. "Victoria, this is a surprise. I hope I'm not intruding," Victoria said. "But after our conversation yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking about you and Graham, and about Catherine." Serena invited her in, apologizing for the modest apartment. Victoria waved away the apology, settling onto the sofa as if she were perfectly comfortable. "Catherine, Graham's mother, was my dearest friend," Victoria began. "We met at music school long before she married Roland. She had the most beautiful voice, much like yours, actually. Graham told me she stopped performing after they married. Roland thought it wasn't dignified for his wife to sing in public," Victoria confirmed. "At first, Catherine didn't mind. She thought she could still enjoy music privately. But over time, Roland's control extended to every aspect of her life, who she could see, where she could go, how she should behave." Victoria's eyes grew sad. By the time she realized what she had given up, it was too late. She had 2 children, a position in society, responsibilities. And Roland, well, he could be very persuasive when he wanted to be. Did she regret marrying him? Not exactly. She loved her children fiercely, but she regretted losing herself. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age. "Before she died, Catherine gave me this letter. She asked me to give it to Graham when he found someone he truly loved, someone who would stand up to Roland in ways she never could." She handed the envelope to Serena. "I think that time has come." Serena looked at the envelope with Graham's name written in elegant handwriting. "Shouldn't you give this to Graham directly?" "I'm giving it to you because I trust you to know when he needs it most." Victoria stood up. "And to tell you that I've made my decision about the board vote. I'll be voting against the sale." Serena's face lit up. "That's wonderful. That gives us the 7 votes we need." "Yes, Catherine would want Graham to have his chance." Victoria moved toward the door. "But Roland won't give up easily. Be prepared for a fight tomorrow." After Victoria left, Serena called Graham to share the good news. He was elated but cautious. "My father could still pull something at the last minute. He's nothing if not resourceful." "We have to believe it will work out," Serena said. "Victoria is bringing the 7th vote we need." "Did she say anything else?" Serena looked at the letter sitting on her coffee table. "Just that she was doing this because your mother would have wanted it." She decided not to mention the letter yet. Victoria had entrusted it to her, and she would give it to Graham when the time felt right. Monday morning dawned clear and bright. Serena had planned to spend the day at the hospital with her mother, but Louise had insisted she go support Graham instead. "He needs you there," Louise had said. "I'm not going anywhere today." So Serena found herself standing outside the Marwick shipping headquarters, a gleaming modern building overlooking Charleston Harbor. Graham met her in the lobby, looking handsome but tense in a navy blue suit. "You didn't have to come," he said, kissing her cheek. "Yes, I did." Serena squeezed his hand. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous, determined." Graham glanced toward the elevators. "The meeting starts in 20 minutes. My father is already upstairs with his lawyers. And Isabel, she's up there too, keeping an eye on things." Graham hesitated. "Serena, Whatever happens today, I know, she interrupted gently. We'll face it together. Graham nodded, his expression softening. Thank you for everything. As they waited for the elevator, the doors opened and Roland Marwick stepped out, accompanied by two men in suits. He stopped short when he saw Graham and Serena. Graham, you're cutting it close. The meeting starts in 15 minutes. I'll be there, Dad. Roland's gaze shifted to Serena, his expression cold. Miss Miles, this is a private board meeting. You have no place here. She's with me, Graham said firmly. The boardroom is for board members and authorized personnel only, Roland insisted. She can wait in the lobby. Before Graham could argue, Serena touched his arm. It's okay. I'll wait down here. Are you sure? She nodded. Go. Do what you need to do. After Graham and Roland disappeared into separate elevators, Serena sat in the lobby, her stomach tight with tension. The minutes ticked by slowly. She tried to read a magazine but couldn't focus on the words. An hour passed, then another. The lobby grew busy with employees and visitors, but there was no sign of Graham or any news from upstairs. Finally, just after noon, the elevator doors opened and Isabel rushed out, her face flushed with excitement. Serena, there you are. You need to come upstairs right now. What happened? Is everything okay? Better than okay, but we need you in the boardroom. Come on. Confused but hopeful, Serena followed Isabel into the elevator. As they rode up to the top floor, Isabel explained, the vote was tied, 6-6. No one expected that. One of the board members who promised to vote with us changed his mind at the last minute. So what happens now? That's the amazing part. Isabel's eyes sparkled. Dad pulled out some obscure bylaw that says in case of a tie, a demonstration of leadership can break the deadlock. What does that mean? It means both candidates, in this case Dad and Graham, have to present their vision for the company's future. The board then votes again. Isabel squeezed Serena's arm. Graham was brilliant. He talked about modernizing the fleet, improving worker conditions, expanding into new markets. Dad just kept talking about tradition and stability. And the second vote? That's what's happening now. But Graham asked for you to be there. When they reached the boardroom, Serena was shocked by the scene. The large table was surrounded by serious-looking men and women, with Roland at one end and Graham at the other. All eyes turned to her as she entered. Graham stood up, smiling at her. Serena, thank you for coming. Roland's face was tight with anger. This is highly irregular. Miss Miles has no place in this meeting. Actually, she does, Graham said calmly, because what I want to say next involves her. He turned to address the board. Before you vote again, I want to be clear about what kind of company I intend to lead. Marwick Shipping was founded by my grandfather on principles of integrity, innovation, and investment in people. Over time, some of those principles have been forgotten. Roland started to protest, but Victoria Harmon raised her hand. Let him finish, Roland. Graham continued, I believe this company can be great again, not just financially successful, but a place people are proud to work, a company that treats its employees with respect, that invests in cleaner technology, that gives back to the community. He walked around the table toward Serena. And I want to lead that company with integrity, in my professional life and my personal life, which is why I'm not going to hide or apologize for who I love. Roland stood up abruptly. This is emotional manipulation. He's trying to use this relationship to sway your votes. No, Dad, I'm being honest about who I am and what I value. Graham turned back to the board. My father thinks love is a weakness. I think it's a strength. Serena taught me that courage isn't about power or control. It's about being true to yourself, even when it's difficult. He took Serena's hand. If you vote to keep Marwick Shipping in the family, I promise to lead with the same courage, integrity, and vision that Serena shows every day when she sings. The boardroom was silent for a long moment. Then Victoria Harmon spoke up. I think we're ready to vote again. Roland looked around the table, his face flushed with anger and something else. Fear, perhaps, or the dawning realization that he was losing control. Before we vote, he said, his voice tight, I want to make one thing absolutely clear. If Graham takes over as CEO, I will resign from the board completely. I will not be part of watching him dismantle everything I've built. There was a murmur around the table. Graham's expression was pained but resolute. If that's your choice, Dad, I'll respect it, but my door will always be open if you change your mind. The second vote was conducted by secret ballot. As the board members wrote down their choices, Serena squeezed Graham's hand, sending him silent support. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The company secretary collected the ballots and counted them, his expression carefully neutral. Finally, he looked up. The vote is 8-4 in favor of retaining Marwick Shipping as a family company with Graham Marwick as CEO. The room erupted in a mixture of reactions: relief, congratulations, tension. Roland stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This meeting is adjourned," he announced, his voice cold. Without looking at Graham or Serena, he strode from the room, his shoulders rigid with anger. Isabel was the first to reach Graham, throwing her arms around him. "You did it, I'm so proud of you." Other board members came up to offer congratulations. Victoria Harmon hugged both Graham and Serena, whispering, "Catherine would be so proud." And when the initial excitement had calmed, Graham turned to Serena. "I should go talk to my father." "Of course," she agreed. "I'll wait for you." Graham found Roland in his office, packing personal items into a box. "Dad," he said from the doorway, "we need to talk." Roland didn't look up. "There's nothing to talk about. The board has made its decision. This doesn't have to be the end. You don't have to resign." "I meant what I said, Graham. I won't watch you undo my life's work." Graham stepped into the office. "I'm not trying to undo anything. I'm trying to build on the foundation you created. Make it stronger, better, by changing everything I put in place." Roland finally looked up, his eyes hard. "By flaunting your relationship with that girl in front of the board. Her name is Serena. And yes, by being honest about who I am and who I love." Graham sighed. "Dad, you taught me to stand up for what I believe in. That's all I'm doing. I taught you to respect tradition, to honor your family name. And I do. But honoring our name doesn't mean blindly following every tradition, especially ones that hurt people." Graham moved closer to the desk. "The benefits you cut 20 years ago? Serena's father worked for us then. He lost his health insurance 3 months before he died." Roland's expression flickered with something like guilt. "That was a business decision, necessary for survival." "Was it? Or was it just easier than finding another solution?" Graham shook his head. "I don't want to fight with you, Dad. I want you to be part of this new chapter. But I won't pretend to be someone I'm not to make you comfortable." Roland returned to packing his box. "I think it's best if we take some time apart. I'll be staying at the beach house for a while." Graham recognized the dismissal. "If that's what you want. But don't stay away too long. You're still my father. I still want you in my life." As he turned to leave, Roland spoke again, his voice quieter than before. "Does she really make you happy? This girl, Serena?" Graham paused in the doorway. "Yes, she does." Roland nodded once, sharply, but said nothing more. Graham closed the door quietly behind him. 3 months later, Serena stood backstage at the Charleston Performing Arts Center, nervous energy coursing through her veins. Through the curtain, she could hear the murmur of the audience as they took their seats. So much had changed since that fateful night at the Marwick gala. Her mother's health had stabilized with the new treatment Graham had helped her access. Serena had been offered a contract with a small but prestigious recording label, and Graham had taken over as CEO of Marwick Shipping, already implementing changes that were making waves in the industry. Roland had kept his distance, spending most of his time at the beach house, but according to Isabel, he had been asking questions about the company, about Graham's innovations, small signs that perhaps with time, reconciliation might be possible. "5 minutes, Miss Miles," the stage manager called. Serena took a deep breath, smoothing the silk of her evening gown, a gift from Isabel for this special night. Her first major solo concert. The theater was sold out. Nervous? She turned to see Graham standing in the doorway of her dressing room, handsome in a dark suit holding a bouquet of white roses. "Terrified," she admitted with a smile. "You'll be amazing." He handed her the flowers. "These are from my mother's garden at the estate. Victoria helped me pick them." Serena buried her nose in the fragrant blooms. "They're beautiful. Thank you. I have something else for you, too." Graham reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Serena's heart skipped a beat. "Graham, it's not what you think. Not yet, anyway." He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold pendant in the shape of a musical note. "This belonged to my mother. Victoria gave it to me last week. She said it should be yours now." Tears pricked at Serena's eyes as Graham fastened the necklace around her throat. "It's perfect," she whispered. "There's one more thing." Graham pulled an envelope from his inside pocket, the letter from Catherine that Victoria had given Serena months before. "Why didn't you give me this sooner?" "I was waiting for the right moment," Serena said. "Victoria trusted me to know when you needed it most." "I read it last night," Graham said, his eyes soft with emotion. "My mother wrote about finding your voice, about the courage to be true to yourself. She said she hoped I would find someone who would help me find my voice the way she never quite found hers. He touched the pendant at Serena's throat. And I have. 2 minutes, Miss Miles. Graham kissed her quickly. I'll be in the front row. Aunt Naomi and your mother are already in their seats. VIP section as requested. As Graham left to take his seat, Serena looked in the mirror one last time. The woman who looked back at her was different from the one who had hesitantly stepped forward at Roland Marwick's gala all those months ago. She was stronger now, more confident. She had reclaimed not just her voice, but her sense of self. The stage manager appeared at her door. It's time, Miss Miles. Serena nodded, ready. As she walked toward the stage, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The pain, the joy, the love she had found along the way. The applause started as soon as she stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. When her eyes adjusted, she looked out at the audience and found Graham immediately, sitting between her mother and Aunt Naomi in the front row. They were all beaming with pride, and there, in the back of the theatre, barely visible but unmistakable, was Roland Marwick. He wasn't smiling, but he was there, a small step perhaps, toward acceptance. Serena took her place at the piano, adjusted the microphone and looked out at the audience one more time. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Music has always been my refuge, my joy, my voice when words failed me. Tonight, I'd like to share that voice with you." Her fingers touched the keys, and the first notes of her opening song filled the theatre. As she began to sing, she felt the familiar magic of music flowing through her, connecting her to something larger than herself. In the front row, Graham watched her with love shining in his eyes, and Serena sang for him, for herself, for everyone who had ever lost their voice and found it again. One note had changed everything, and now her song would go on.